She didn't know how long she had been kicking the sticky, withered leaves, only that her bare arms were now cold, and that the shouting up at the house had become shrill, sounding so harsh and angry that it hurt her chest. Only just now she had been about to cry, but that was something she really didn't want to do. "You'll get lines on your cheeks, and that's ugly, Dorrit," her mother would say. She was good at reminding her of that sort of thing. Dorrit looked at the wide, dark track she had left in the foliage on the lawn, then once more counted the windows and doors of the house. She knew perfectly well how many there were. It was just a way to pass the time. 2 doors for the wings, 14 large windows, and 4 rectangular ones in the basement, and if she counted every pane, there were 142. "I can count really high," she thought proudly. She was the only one in her class who could. Then she heard the hinges of the basement door on the side wing squeak, which was rarely a good sign. "I'm not going in," she whispered to herself when she saw the housemaid coming up from the basement stairwell, heading straight toward her. At the far end of the garden, where it was dark among the bushes, she often crouched down and hid, sometimes for hours, if necessary, but this time the housemaid was too quick, the grip on her wrist tight and hard. "You're crazy trudging about out here with those fine shoes on, Dorrit. Mrs. Zimmerman will be fuming when she sees how mucky they are. You know that." She stood in front of the sofas in her stocking feet, feeling uncomfortable because the 2 women just stared at her, as if they had no idea what she was doing in the drawing-room. Her grandmother's face was stern and full of foreboding, while her mother's was red-eyed and unattractive, just as wrinkled as she had said Dorrit's would become. "Not now, Dorrit, darling, we're speaking," her mother said. She looked around. "Where's Daddy?" she asked. The 2 women looked at each other. In a flash her mother was like a scared little animal cowering in a corner, and not for the first time. "Go to the dining room, Dorrit. There are some magazines you can flick through," her grandmother dictated. "Where's Daddy?" she asked again. "We'll talk about that later. He's gone," answered her grandmother. Dorrit took a careful step backward, watching her grandmother's gesticulations. "Go now," they seemed to say. She could just as well have stayed out in the garden. In the dining room, plates with stale cauliflower stew and half-eaten pork patties still lay on the heavy side table. The forks and knives lay on the tablecloth, which was stained with wine from 2 overturned crystal glasses. The room didn't seem at all like it normally did, and it was certainly not somewhere Dorrit wanted to be. She turned around toward the hallway and its many gloomy and tall doors with worn handles. The large house was divided into several areas, and Dorrit thought she knew every corner. Up on the 2nd floor it smelled so strongly of her grandmother's powders and perfumes that the scent clung to one's clothes even after returning home. Up there, in the flickering light from the windows, there was nothing for Dorrit to do. On the other hand, she felt right at home in the wing at the back of the 1st floor. It had both a sour and sweet smell of tobacco from the drawn curtains and heavy furniture of the sort one couldn't see anywhere else in Dorrit's world. Large cushioned armchairs you could cuddle up in with your feet tucked under you, and sofas with decorated brown corduroy and carved black sides. That domain in the house was her grandfather's. An hour ago, before her father had started arguing with her grandmother, all 5 of them had been happily sitting around the dining table, and Dorrit had thought that this day would softly wrap around her like a blanket. And then her father had said something or other really wrong that caused her grandmother to immediately raise her eyebrows and her grandfather to stand up from the table. "You'll have to sort this out yourselves," he had said, straightening his pants and sneaking away. That's when they sent her out into the garden. Dorrit carefully pushed open the door to his study. Along one wall there was a pair of brown dressers with shoe samples in open boxes, while on the opposite wall was her grandfather's carved desk, totally piled with papers, covered with blue and red lines. It smelled even stronger of tobacco here, though her grandfather wasn't in the gloomy room. It almost seemed as if the tobacco smoke came from over in the corner, from where a small shaft of light shone through a pair of bookshelves and rested across the writing chair. Dorrit moved closer to see where the light came from. It was exciting because the narrow crack between the bookshelves revealed unknown territory.